I, 23 female, have lived alone in a decently nice apartment in a nice neighborhood for 2 years now. For the most part, the mail gets delivered to the mailboxes at the front entrance of the building. Occasionally, packages are delivered straight to apartment doors, and it's pretty convenient. Well, about a year ago, I was home from work during the day because I took the afternoon off to go to a doctor's appointment. The doorbell rang, and I have a Ring camera. I saw that it was the mailman, so I answered. I have this whole exchange on video. He was maybe in his 30s, white, short, like 5'5", with very large glasses and really disheveled thin hair. I opened the door, smiled, and said, "Thanks so much," and went to take the package. He stopped and stared at me like something was wrong, so I was like, "Oh, sorry, did you need to take a picture of the delivery or something?" And to my surprise, he said, "I know you. I've seen you before. And you can see on the camera, my face changes. My body demeanor gets uncomfortable and I move behind the door." I said, "I'm sorry, I don't think we've met." I went to shut the door, but he raised his voice and took a step forward and said, "I've seen your name on your mail. I found you on Instagram." My face went white and I froze. I said, "Me?" "I was kind of like a deer in headlights," he said. "Yeah, you are a person of interest on Instagram for me. Your account was private, but you're pretty." I said thanks, and slammed the door, locking it quickly. I was happy to know I caught the whole thing on video. I showed it to my then boyfriend, who agreed it was weird. A few days later on Saturday, he's back at my door. He rang the doorbell about 10 times, waiting a few minutes, just staring. I answered him through the doorbell and said, "Hi, you can just leave any mail, thanks." What he said next made me shake. He said, "I actually don't have any mail for you today. I just wanted to say hi. Can I come in for a glass of water?" I decided to just not answer. To be honest, I didn't know what to say. But then, about 2 weeks go by. My then boyfriend stayed the night and slept in. I left early for work. I get a call around 10:30 from my boyfriend, saying that I won't believe what just happened, and I need to check the camera. So I do, and the mailman came. He rang the bell a few times, and my boyfriend answered the door. The mailman took a step back, and my boyfriend stood for a moment. They stared at each other. He realized the man didn't have anything in his hands. He said, "Can I help you?" And the mailman said, "Where's the small girl who lives here?" I'm pretty petite. I'm slightly under 5 foot, 100 pounds. My boyfriend was stunned and said, "I live here too. From now on, leave our packages downstairs," and slammed the door. I was really happy he said that because truthfully, he didn't live with me full time, maybe 2 nights a week. It seemed to work. I didn't see the mailman again at all, actually. My boyfriend and I broke up a few months ago. I completely forgot about the mailman until today. I was entering my building when he was exiting at the same time. He stared at me and I went to walk by. He turned to walk after me and said, "Hey, I haven't seen that guy in a while who used to live with you. Did he move out?" I panicked and walked faster, grabbing my keys, but I lied and said, "Oh, he's around." As I entered quickly, I said, "Hey honey, I'm home," and slammed it fast. I don't know why I lied, but something told me to make it clear I wasn't alone. Am I being dramatic or mean? Or is he downright creepy? Just yesterday, I went to a friend's house for a small get-together at another buddy's place. It went great. We laughed a lot, had fun, and left around 9 p.m. I had ridden my bike there from home, but when it was time to leave, I realized my phone was dead. No GPS, no flashlight, just me and my bike in the dark. I started zigzagging through unfamiliar streets, trying to find my way home. At one point, I stopped at a crosswalk to catch my breath. That's when I noticed someone behind a tree, wearing a blue hoodie. He raised his arm and waved at me. It was weird. I didn't wave back. I just got on my bike and kept moving. A few streets down, I suddenly heard heavy breathing and fast footsteps behind me. I turned around and it was the guy in the blue hoodie. A white male, running straight at me. I pedaled like hell. As I was speeding away, I heard him yell, "Fuck you." I made it to a barbecue restaurant, hoping to duck inside, but it was already closed. I looked back. He was still following me. I kept pedaling, with my heart pounding, until I reached the AutoZone near my house. When I finally glanced behind me again, he was gone. For a second, I thought it was over until I heard a voice near the front of AutoZone. A male voice, laughing manically. The laugh faded into the distance, like he was walking away. I booked it home, locked everything, and tried to sleep, but paranoia kept me awake. Right, so picture this. It's about 4 in the morning, one of those cold, damp London weekdays where the air feels heavy and clings to you. I'd fallen down a video game rabbit hole, surfaced hours later, and realized 2 things. It was obscenely late, and 2, I'd forgotten to eat dinner. A quick, desperate scan of the kitchen confirmed the worst. Nothing. Damn it. My only hope was the 24-hour McDonald's down the road. It's maybe a 10-minute walk mostly through quiet suburban streets that feel almost unnervingly still at that hour. Coat on, I headed out in the pre-dawn gloom. Habit took over and I immediately stuck my earphones in, scrolling through my phone to catch up on the messages and notifications I'd blissfully ignored for the past several hours. In hindsight, I know exactly how that looks. Headphones in, face lit by a phone screen, completely oblivious to the world at 4 a.m. Prime target material, basically. I was about halfway there when I registered movement just behind me. I glanced back. There was a guy, swallowed by an oversized hoodie, riding a bicycle. Except, it wasn't a normal bike. It was painfully, obviously a child's pink bike. The tiny frame looked ridiculous underneath him. He wasn't going anywhere specific, just doing slow, wide loops on the empty street, always ending up slightly behind me. Now, I've lived in London for about 3 years. You see weird stuff. It's part of the background noise. My default programming kicked in. Head down, keep walking. Don't make eye contact. He'll get bored. Standard operating procedure for navigating the city's low-level strangeness. But then he wasn't behind me anymore. He smoothly cycled up right alongside me, matching my pace. The ignore it strategy suddenly felt very thin. He was muttering something. It was clear he wanted my attention. Reluctantly, I pulled out one earbud, still walking, trying for casual indifference. My automatic defense mechanism fired off before I even properly heard him. I'm sorry, I don't have any change. That's when I made the mistake of actually looking at him. He wasn't asking for change. His eyes locked onto mine, and there was a hard, focused intensity there that immediately set off alarm bells. My gaze flickered down. His right hand was shoved deep into the front pocket of his hoodie, pushing the fabric outwards. Oh. It wasn't a slow dawning realization, more like a sudden plunge into ice water. The casual weirdness evaporated, replaced by cold, sharp-edged fear. That's when I properly registered his words, spoken low but clear. Give me your phone. My feet kept moving, seemingly on autopilot, but the rest of me felt frozen. My brain felt like it was buffering, trying to process the demand against the very real possibility of what was in that pocket. Is he bluffing? Is that a knife? Is this phone, I literally just got and definitely can't afford to replace, worth getting stabbed over? The mental calculus was frantic and terrifying. We were still moving forward side by side in this bizarre, terrifying mobile standoff. Me staring straight ahead, hyper aware of him beside me, my mind racing. And then, a sound. The distinct rumble of a car engine growing louder. Headlights swept across the end of the street, illuminating the junction just yards ahead. A brief moment of blinding light. I shot a look back at the guy on the tiny pink bike. The thought flashed, run. Make a break for the car, for the light. But before the thought could even translate into action, he abruptly swerved. He pushed off hard on the tiny pedals, cycling rapidly away down the street, disappearing back into the shadows as quickly as he'd appeared. I stood there for a second, heart hammering against my ribs. Then the next thought hit me. Shit, I still have to walk home. Needless to say, the McDonald's craving vanished instantly. On the way back, the headphones stayed off, and my phone stayed deep in my pocket, clutched in my hand. I also gave the quiet suburban streets a wide berth. Instead, I took the long way around, sticking to the main A road. It's noisy, choked with fumes even at this hour, and the pavement is basically a narrow, neglected strip, inches from speeding traffic. It felt horrible, but infinitely safer. The constant stream of headlights, the drone of engines, it was unpleasant, but it was a presence. company of a sort. Thankfully, the rest of the walk was uneventful. No more unexpected cyclists emerged from the dark. For the past 2.5 years now, I have been living in the north of the Scottish Highlands, and when I say north, I mean as far north as you can possibly go. I live in a small coastal town, which is actually the northernmost town of the British mainland. I had always wanted to live in the Scottish Highlands, which seemed a far cry from my gloomy hometown back in England, and when my dad and his partner told me they'd bought an old house up there, I jumped at the opportunity. From what they told me, this place sounded like the perfect destination. There were seals and otters in the town's river, dolphins and orcas in the sea, and at certain times of the year, you could see the northern lights in the night sky. But despite my initial excitement of finally getting to live in the Scottish Highlands, full of beautiful mountains, amazing wildlife, and vibrant culture, I would soon learn the region I had just moved to was far from the idyllic destination I had dreamed of. In my spare time, I took to exploring the coastline around the town's area. On one of these days, I started to explore what was east of the town. On the right-hand side of the mouth of the river, there's an old ruin of a castle, but past that leads to a cliff trail around the eastern coastline. 6 or so months later, and into the Christmas season, I'd just gotten out of a long-distance relationship. Feeling as though I had finally found closure, I decided I wanted to go on a long hike by myself along the cliff trail. And so, the day after Christmas, Boxing Day, I got my backpack together, packed a lunch for myself, and headed out at 6 a.m. The hike along the trail had taken me all day, and by the evening, I had walked so far that I actually discovered what I first thought was a ghost town. What I found was an abandoned port settlement, which had the creepiest looking dispersion of old stone houses, as well as what looked like the ruins of an ancient round tower. As it turned out, this was actually a heritage center, a tourist spot. It seemed I had walked so far around the rugged terrain that I was now 10 miles outside of my town. On the other side of this settlement were very high distant cliffs, which, compared to the cliffs I had already trekked along, were far grander. Although I could feel my legs finally begin to give way, and already anticipating a long journey back along the trail, I decided I was going to cross the bay and reach the cliffs, and then make my way back home. By the time I was making my way around the bay, it had become very dark. I had already walked past more than half of the bay, but the cliffs didn't feel any closer. It was at this point when I decided I really needed to turn around, as at night, walking back along the cliff trail was going to be dangerous, and for the parts of the trail that led down to the base of the cliffs, I couldn't really afford for the tide to cut off my route. I made my way back through the abandoned settlement of the Heritage Center, and at night, this place definitely felt more like a ghost town. Shining my phone flashlight in the windows of the old stone houses, I was expecting to see a face or something peer out at me. What surprisingly made these houses scarier at night were a handful of old fishing boats that had been left outside them. The wood they were made from looked very old, and the paint had mostly been weathered off. But what was more concerning was that in this abandoned ghost town of a settlement, I wasn't alone. A van had pulled up with 3 or 4 young men getting out. I wasn't sure what they were doing exactly, but they were burning things in a trash can. What it was that they were burning, I don't know. But as I made my way out of the abandoned settlement, every time I looked back at the men by the van, at least one of them was watching me. Already feeling scared of the creepy surroundings, I now felt very unsafe because of these men, staring suspiciously at me. I was paranoid that they were going to try and follow me, as if I had caught them doing something illegal. Thankfully, they stayed where they were as I continued to make my way out of the ghost town and back along the trail. This was in August of 2023, so not that long ago. Across the street from my house is one of the last standing ungentrified houses in my neighborhood. It's not in good shape whatsoever and is completely abandoned. It is the perfect place for a homeless person to set up camp, and did. In July 2023, a homeless person started living on the porch of the house across the street. He was making his own little living situation with a mattress and everything. He wasn't really bothering anybody until he began shitting on the sidewalk, literally defecating and leaving it out for everyone to see. At this point, my neighbors were fed up with him and began filing multiple police reports to try and get him and his living arrangement out. The summers where I live are disgusting. It gets up to 110 at peak. I rarely ever went on walks and only left the house when I had somewhere to be. Though on the rare occasion I did just walk around my neighborhood, he would conveniently be walking by. After a few coincidences, he actually went up to me. I was petting the neighborhood cats and he asked me if I liked cats. I said yeah, uncomfortably, and he just stared at me, petting the cat for like 2 minutes, then started rambling in a foreign language, then walked off. After that, I made sure that I kept my distance from him. August 2023 rolls around and I'm about to start my sophomore year. 2 days before my first day, a letter is left in our mailbox. It's a love letter. It had no return or send address and had someone's full legal name signed at the bottom. I thought it was the wrong address, but for whatever reason I kept it in my room. The next day, I get another letter in my mailbox signed with the same full legal name. This letter was a love poem of some sort. In the poem, I suspected that it might have been meant for me, as he wrote, "Blonde Star Kitty," and I was bleach blonde at the time. My dad started connecting the dots and communicating with our neighbors about this creep and what he was doing. The first day of school starts. It was a normal school day until lunchtime when my dad sent a photo of a close-up of this guy's living situation. Apparently, the police finally came over after several reports and told him to leave the neighborhood. This gave my dad some time to go over and see what he had going on. In the picture, he had all sorts of weird things, but most notably, my fucking perfume that disappeared from my bedroom a few weeks prior. I immediately pointed that out, and that's when I knew this guy had to go. Around 5 p.m., the homeless guy came back and noticed that my neighbors were collecting his shit to throw away. I was in my room during all of this, but according to my dad, he was very angry, and the police were called again, in which the officer tried to contain him, and he attacked the police officer, which prompted his arrest. I noticed police lights coming from outside, which is when I came out and saw all the police officers and my neighbors talking to an officer, and they told me what happened. My neighbors began talking to me about his predatory behavior and how they seen him peeking into my house, watching me as I left and came home, etc. The next day, all I could think about were the events of the night before. I began connecting dots to when, randomly throughout the summer, my front door would open and close, but my parents weren't home. This, and the fact that he had my perfume, irked me so bad. He clearly had been breaking into the house and entering my room and taking my stuff as some sort of memorabilia. Anyways, that was how my first day of sophomore year went. He clearly had some mental issues, and I truly hope he gets better and stays the heck away from me.